Hi, this is the first part of my video lecture on errors, which is a part of the syllabus of class 11th physics. We will start this video with the definition of errors and its classification based on its nature and factors causing it, where we will basically talk about systematic and random errors. Thereafter, we will introduce few terms, that is, we will understand the meaning of few terms like true value or actual value, absolute errors, mean absolute error, fractional or relative error, and percentage error. Finally, we will solve numerical problems on errors to solidify our concept. So this is Anand, you are watching 23.5 degrees. Let's start. If I ask you what is the number of days in a week, your answer would be 7. And this time you are damn sure that it is exactly 7. It's not something like 7.01 or 7.001 or 6.99 or something else. It is exactly 7. So your answer is 100% accurate and perfect. Similarly, if I ask you what is the number of fingers in your hands, your answer would be 10, and this time again you are 100% sure about it. It is exactly 10. That is, you can put as many zeros as you wish to after putting a decimal, because it's not even something like 10.0001. Your answer is 100% accurate. But when it comes to measured values, we cannot be as sure. There is always some amount of error associated with every measurement process. There can be several possible causes of this error, but it will always be there. What we can do is that by doing our best, we can reduce the value of error associated with a measurement process. We can never eliminate it completely. Okay. For example, let's take the example where we are trying to measure the length of this pencil, and let's say the value came out to be something like 19.2 centimeters. Okay. Now, if I ask you, is it the exact length of this pencil, what would be your answer? Is there a chance that the actual length of the pencil is 19.21 centimeter or even 19.19 centimeter or something like that? Your answer would be yes. Since we are measuring it, so there must be some flaw. There must be some error. Now, to reduce the amount of error associated with any measurement process, what we can do? What is in our hand? We can do several things. Actually, we can use an instrument, a measuring instrument with a much higher level of precision, or we can follow proper measurement procedure, or we can be more careful and attentive while taking the measurement, etc. Okay, but remember, no matter how hard we try to reduce the value of error, we can never eliminate it completely. There will always be some amount of error associated with every measurement process, and that is why we are studying this chapter. Okay, let's say we are trying to measure a mass, the true value of which is 20 kilograms. True value is also known as actual value or the mean value. We will learn about it later in the same video. Okay, so we are trying to measure a mass, the true value or the actual value of which is 20 kilograms. Okay, and suppose the measurement gave us a value 20.1 kilograms. So can you tell me what is the error associated with this measurement process? Can you tell me what is the error associated with this value? The error is measured value minus true value. Always remember, the error associated with any measurement is measured value minus true value. Here the measured value is 20.1 kilogram because our instrument measured this value as 20.1 kilogram. So the measured value is 20.1 kilogram. When we subtract the true value, that is 20 kilogram, from it, we get the error, that is 0.1 kilograms. Okay, so in this case the error is 0.1 kilogram, and this error is positive, right? This error is positive. Let's consider another possibility where we are measuring a mass, say 20 kilogram again, but this time the machine gave us a reading of 19.8 kilogram. Okay, now can you tell me the error in this case? In this case, the error would be again measured value minus true value. Our measured value this time is 19.8 kilogram minus true value, which is 20 kilograms. So this time the error came out to be 0.2 kilogram minus 0.2 kilogram. So this time the error is negative. We learned that error can be positive as well as negative. When the measured value is more than the true value, we get a positive error. Like suppose we are measuring a length of 5 meter and we got 5.2 meters or 5.02 meter. If we are getting a measured value which is more than the true value, the error will be positive, because the formula to find the error is measured value minus true value. Okay, and if we get a value which is less than the true value, suppose I am measuring a current of 5 ampere and I am getting 4.9 ampere reading. Okay, then this time our measured value is 4.9 ampere and the true value is 5 ampere. Since the measured value is less than the true value, so we will get a negative error, because the formula for error is measured value minus true value. That is 4.9 ampere minus 5 ampere, that is minus 0.1 ampere. So we understood that error can be positive as well as negative. Okay, now all errors can be divided into two categories. Number one is systematic error and number two is random error, which sometimes is also referred as accidental errors. Let's start with systematic error. The typical characteristic of systematic error is that they are either consistently positive in nature each time you are taking a measurement, or consistently negative in nature while taking the measurements. For example, let's say I am measuring a current, the true value of which is 100 ampere, and my instrument gave me a reading of 100.1 ampere. Now I tried to measure another current, the true value of which is 50 ampere, and my instrument gave me a reading of 50.3 ampere. Again I tried to measure a current whose true value is 15 ampere and I got a measurement as 15.2 ampere. See, each time I am taking a measurement, I am getting a positive error. That is, error is, what is error? Error is measured value minus true value. Okay, so I am getting a positive error. This time my error was 0.1 ampere plus 0.1 ampere. The second time my error was 0.3 ampere, obviously, plus 0.3 ampere, and the third time my error was 0.2 ampere, again plus 0.2 ampere. So each time I am getting a positive error, hence I can say it is systematic error. Now another possibility was that while measuring a current of say 100 ampere, again I got a reading of 99 ampere. Okay, while measuring a current of 50 ampere, that is the true value of the current is 50 ampere, I am trying to measure, and I got a reading of 49.5 ampere. When I was trying to measure a current, the true value of which is 40 ampere, I got a reading of 39.2 ampere. Now this time, each time I am getting a negative error. Okay, again the errors are one-sided. Earlier my errors was biased on the positive side. This time my errors are biased towards the negative side. Okay, so consistently this time the errors are negative in nature. Here the error is minus 1 ampere, here the error is minus 0.5 ampere, and this time the error is minus 0.8 ampere. My errors are consistently one-sided. Okay, so this time again I can say it is systematic error. Now what are the things that may cause the occurrence of systematic error in any measurement? There are three causes that are mostly responsible for the occurrence of systematic error. Number one is instrumental error, which we also know as constant error or zero error. Zero error. Number two is imperfection in experimental technique, that is there is a flaw in the way you are taking the measurement. Okay, it may be caused by your false procedure or even due to the effect of the surrounding. Okay, or systematic error may also be caused by personal error, that is due to the personal biasness of a person taking the measurement. Let's talk about each of them one by one. Instrumental errors arise due to an imperfection in the design of the measuring instrument or a flaw in the calibration of the measuring instrument that is being used to measure a physical quantity. Some examples are zero error, Voronov scale error, etc. Let's understand it. Suppose I am using this ammeter to measure the current in an external circuit. Okay, now when this ammeter is yet not connected to any external circuit, it is showing a value of minus 0.2 ampere. It is showing a value of minus 0.2 ampere, but we know the correct value of current when this ammeter is not connected to an external circuit is 0 ampere, because no current is yet flowing through this ammeter. So now we can say that when this ammeter is showing a value of say 100 ampere, the correct value of, or the true value or the actual value of the current must be 100.2 ampere. When this ammeter is showing a value of 20.2 ampere, the true value must be what? The true value must be 20.4 ampere. Why? Because we know that when the true value of the current was 0 ampere, the emitter was showing a value of minus 0.2 ampere. That it is showing 0.2 ampere less than the true value of the current being measured each time we measure a current using this instrument. Okay. So when the current is 102.2 ampere, when the true value of the current being measured is 100.2 ampere, this emitter will measure it as 100 ampere. When the true value of the current being measured is 20.4 ampere, the same emitter will give a reading of 20.2 ampere. So each time it will show a reading 0.2 ampere less than the true value. The error here is minus 0.2 ampere. This is the zero error in our instrument. See, the magnitude of the error is constant. That is why zero error is also known as constant error. Okay. This is the case of a negative zero error. There is another possibility of a positive zero error. Suppose instead of showing minus 0.2 ampere when not connected to an external circuit, this emitter we are showing a value of 0.2 ampere, that is plus 0.2 ampere. Okay, when not connected to an external circuit. So when the value of current is 0 ampere, the true value, here is the true value. When the true value is 0 ampere, the measured value is 0.2 ampere this time. So if I am getting a reading of 100.2 ampere, then the true value must be 100 ampere, because this emitter has a positive zero error, the magnitude of which is 0.2 ampere. So each time it is going to show a value, a measured value, it is going to show a reading that is more than the true value by 0.2 ampere. The magnitude of the true value, the magnitude of the zero error is 0.2 ampere. So when the true value is 50 ampere, this emitter will give a reading of 50.2 ampere. Each time it is giving a reading that is 0.2 ampere higher than the true value. Okay, so the error, the zero error in each case is measured value minus true value, that is 0.2 ampere, right? Remember this, the zero error is also known as constant error because the magnitude of zero error is constant for a given instrument. Okay, let's take another example of instrumental error, that is a worn off scale. It means a scale that is worn off from one end. It may occur due to extensive use of the scale, due to mishandling of the scale being too old, or for some other reason. Now, since this scale is worn off from one end, there is a possibility that the markings near the end are also missing along with the missing part of the scale. Okay, so there is a possibility that instead of starting from 0, this scale is starting from the second mark, say 0.1. It is starting from the second marking. Okay, then third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, then 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, and so on. It will continue. Okay, so if I measure the length of any object using this scale, what I will do, I will match one end of the object being measured with 0.1 of this scale instead of 0. In case it was a normal scale, I would have matched one end of my object with 0, but since this scale is starting from 0.1, one of the mark is missing from the end, so any object, the end of any object will be matched with 0.1 of this scale. And due to this reason, any length being measured, suppose I am measuring a pencil, any length being measured, I will get a value 0.1 centimeter more than the true value of that length. So if the actual value of the length of this pencil is 5.6 centimeter, I will get a value of 5.7 centimeter. If the value of this pencil is say 6 centimeter, I will get a value of 6.1 centimeter, because I am matching the end of the pencil with 0.1 instead of 0. Why I am not matching with 0? Because the marking 0 is missing. Okay, due to the worning off of this scale. I hope you got it. Let's talk about another possible cause for the occurrence of systematic error in our measurement, that is an imperfection in experimental technique. It might occur due to an inexperience of the person taking the measurements. He might not have enough knowledge of the way of taking measurement, the correct procedure of taking the measurement, or it may also occur due to external conditions, due to the effect of external variables like temperature, wind, humidity, etc. Let's see how. Okay, let's say a guy is using a thermometer to measure the body temperature of a child. The correct way of using a thermometer is to put it inside your mouth, wait for a few moments, and then record the body temperature. This is the correct way. If the guy is inexperienced, or you can say if he doesn't have enough knowledge of how to use the thermometer, he doesn't have enough knowledge of the correct procedure of taking the measurement, he might use the thermometer somewhat like this in the second picture, which is a false way of taking measurement, right? Because the temperature below the arm, he is putting this thermometer below the arm to measure the body temperature, which is a false way of taking measurement, because the temperature below the arms is always less than the true body temperature. So he is always gonna get a value of the body temperature that is less than the true body temperature, right? So we can say it is a case of systematic error. To understand the effect of environmental variables like temperature, humidity, pressure, etc. on our measurement, I have taken this example. Let's say I want to measure the length of this pencil using a scale. An important point about this scale is that it was graduated at a temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. That means the marking that you can see on this scale were made at a temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. Now, I know that this scale is made up of some material that expands with increasing temperature and contracts with decreasing temperature. So what will happen? As the temperature increases from 20 degrees Celsius, the scale will expand and the marking on it will also expand along with the scale. While as the temperature decreases from 20 degrees Celsius, the same scale will contract and hence the marking on the scale will contract along with it. So how it would affect our measurement? If we are taking our measurements at temperatures more than 20 degrees Celsius, we will consistently get a value less than true value of the length of this pencil. While if we are taking our measurements below 20 degrees Celsius, then we will consistently get a value less than the true value of the length of this pencil. You can see in this example, while measuring the same length at a temperature higher than 20 degrees Celsius, let's say at 35 degrees Celsius, I am getting a value that is less than the correct value. Here the value is 21.6 centimeter, about 21.6 centimeter, while here at 20 degrees Celsius the correct value was 22.2 centimeter, about 22.2 centimeter. So at a temperature higher than 20 degrees Celsius, I am getting a value less than the correct value consistently. That means I am getting a negative error consistently. While if I measure the same length at a temperature less than 20 degrees Celsius, I will get a value of the length of this pencil more than its true value. That means each time while measuring the length of this pencil at a temperature less than 20 degrees Celsius, I will get a positive error. I hope it is clear now. Another possible reason for the occurrence of systematic errors is personal error. That is the personal biasness of a person. It may occur due to individual biasness, lack of proper setting of the apparatus, etc. Example of personal error is parallax error. So what happens here? If the observer, the person taking the measurement by habit, is consistently doing something that is causing the result of the measurement to be shifted on the positive side or on the negative side consistently, then we call it a personal error. The perfect example is parallax error. Remember, personal errors can be biased as well as unbiased. If they are biased, they will cause systematic error. If the personal errors are unbiased, they will cause random error. Okay, we will talk about random error just after this. So the example of personal error is parallax error. Look at here in this image. The correct way to read the value of your measurement is to keep your eye perpendicular to the scale. But if someone by habit is keeping his head consistently towards this side, then he will get a value that is more than the true value. In this case, the true value is 4.8 centimeter. So he will get consistently a value that is more than the true value, say 4.9 centimeter. Okay. Now, if there is another person who consistently is keeping his head tilted on this side, then he will get a value. He will write down a value of his measurement. He will report a value that is consistently less than the true value, say 4.7 centimeter in this case. So the correct way of noting down any measurement, the correct way of reporting any measurement is to keep your eye perpendicular to the scale. See, when a guy is keeping his eye perpendicular to the scale, he will write down the correct value, that is 4.8 centimeter in this case. This type of error is known as parallax error, which is the perfect example of personal biasness of a person that causes personal error, or which is a form of systematic error. Okay. Now let's talk about the second type of error, that is random error or accidental errors. In case of systematic error, we saw that the value of systematic error was constant most of the times, like in case of zero error, Warnoff scale error, etc. Okay. So the value of systematic error was constant most of the time, and even if it was not constant, it was easier to deal with because we can find the value, the magnitude of systematic error easily using some mathematics and the knowledge of few laws of physics. We can easily find the magnitude of the systematic error. Also, systematic errors were either consistently positive while taking the measurement or consistently negative, right? The nature of random error is exactly opposite of it. They can be positive as well as negative. They are equally likely to be positive as well as negative. So sometimes you will get a value that is more than the true value, while other times you will get a value which is less than the true value. And the magnitude of random error is also completely unpredictable because they can occur due to various reasons which is not in our control. A perfect example of random errors is least count error. What is least count? It is the smallest measurement, it is the smallest value that an instrument can give perfectly. So let's say I am using the first scale. This scale is the first scale. I am using it to measure the length of this pencil. Clearly it is 1 point something, but 1 point what? This scale is not telling us 1 point what. So the second digit will be coming from our estimation. It can be someone may estimate it as 1.1, someone may estimate it as 1.2, someone may estimate it as 1.3, someone may estimate it as 1.4 and even 1.9, because the scale is clearly showing that the value is lying somewhere between 1 and 2. So the second digit completely depends upon the estimation ability of the person taking the measurement. Okay, so let's say the true value of the length of this pencil, let's say it is 1.6 centimeter. Okay, now if someone is judging this length as 1.5 centimeter, there is a negative error of minus 0.1 centimeter in his measurement. While if the same person or some other person is judging this length as 1.7 centimeter, there will be a positive error of 0.1 centimeter in his measurement. And why this error is arising? This error is arising because there is always some limitation with the resolution of the measuring instrument that we are using to take our measurements. Okay, the resolution may be very high, but still it must have some limit. So there will always be some amount of least count error in our measurement, and least count errors can be minimized by using a measuring instrument that is more precise. So in the second case, the scale is much more precise than this one. So this scale is clearly telling that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say the value is lying somewhere between 1.5 and 1.6. okay, so it is clear the second scale is clearly telling that it is 1.5 something. The third digit will come from our estimation, and it can be 1.51, 1.52, 1.53 or anything. Okay, so this time the value of least count error is minimized, but still it is there. To make it further clear, let me show you the trend shown by systematic and random errors. Okay, let's say this blue line represents the true values of the quantity being measured. Okay, so when the true value was this, all the values on this blue line is the true value. Okay, when the true value was this, we got a value this. When the true value was this, we got a value this. When the true value was this, we got a value this. For this value, we got this value. Okay, so every time we are consistently on one side of the true value. Okay, this is the trend shown by systematic error. They are either consistently positive or consistently negative. Another possibility was that every time we take a measurement, we get a negative error. That is this. We get a value which is less than the true value. On the contrary, let's see the trend shown by random errors. Sometimes they are positive in nature, sometimes they are on one side of the true value, while other times they are on the other side of the true value. So they can be positive as well as negative. Their value, the magnitude of random error is changing as well. See, here the magnitude of random error is very small, here it is quite large, here again it is different. So magnitude, each time we are getting a different magnitude of random error, and the sign, the nature of the random error is also changing. Okay, sometimes it is positive and sometimes it is negative. So if random errors are completely unpredictable, okay, if random errors are completely unpredictable, you cannot say which time you will get a positive error, which time you will get a negative error, and what will be the magnitude of your error. then how we can deal with such type of errors, how we can deal with random errors? The best way is to conduct a large number of experiments. Okay, take your measurement for a large number of time and take the average. That average value can be the best representation of the true value of the quantity being measured. Okay, that average value is the best representation of the true value of the quantity being measured. In fact, later we will see that any measurement is shown as true value plus minus mean absolute error. Later we will see that we write any measured value in this form where x is the true value and delta x is the mean absolute error. This mean absolute error is nothing but the mean, the average of the magnitudes of all the random errors associated with our experiment. Okay. Now let us introduce few terms, starting with true value, which sometimes is also known as actual value or mean value. It is simply the average of which successive measurements you are taking. So suppose the first time you got while measuring a mass, first time you got a value 20.2 kilogram, second time you got a value of 19.9 kilogram, third time while measuring the same mass you got a value of 20 kilogram, fourth time you got a value of 21 kilogram, and fifth time you got a value of 19.9 kilogram. Then the true value or the actual value or the mean value all are same. It would be equals to the sum of all your measurements, that means 20.2 plus 19.9 plus 20 plus 21 plus 19.9 divided by the number of measurements, that is 5. It would be equals to 101 divided by 5, that is 20.2. This is the average of all your measurements and this is known as the true value of your measured quantity. Okay. Let's talk about absolute error now. Absolute error is simply the difference between measured value and true value. Suppose while measuring a length, the true value of which is 10 meter, you got a measurement that is 10.1 meters. Then the absolute error would be measured value, the value you obtained, that is 10.1 meter, minus true value, that is 10 meter. It would be equals to 0.1 meter. Similarly, if you obtain 9.8 meter while measuring the same length, okay, then your absolute error would be your measured value, that is 9.8 meter, minus true value, that is 10 meter. It would be equals to minus 0.2 meters. So we can see that absolute errors can be positive as well as negative. Clear? See here, absolute, if suppose that while measuring a quantity, the true value of which is x, you got a measurement that is x1, then the absolute error would be x1 minus x, measured value minus true value. Again, if while measuring the same quantity you got a measurement x2, then your absolute error would be x2 minus x, again measured value minus true value. Measured value minus true value is your absolute error. If you are taking n number of measurements, then you will get n number of absolute errors. Okay, you can see here, if you are taking n number of measurements, then the number of absolute error will also be n, and if you are taking n number of measurements, then you will get n number of errors, and each time absolute error would be equals to what? Measured value minus true value. In some books it is also given as true value minus measured value. It doesn't make any difference. Okay, yes, there is a difference in sign, but some authors write this as the formula to find absolute value, while some other authors write it as true value minus measured value. I would suggest you to follow this formula. Absolute error is measured value minus true value. Okay, and it can be positive as well as negative. Now let's talk about mean absolute error. What is mean absolute error? It is simply the average of the magnitudes of all absolute error. So let's say the true value of a physical quantity is 20 kilogram, and I have taken several measurements to measure this quantity. First time I got 20.1 kilogram, second time I got 19.9 kilogram, third time I got 20 kilogram. Okay, then my first absolute error would be delta x1, that is measured value minus true value. My first measurement is 20.1 minus true value is 20 kilogram, so 20 My first absolute error would be 0.1 kilogram. My second absolute error would be measured value, that is 19.9 kilogram, minus true value, that is 20 kilogram, that is minus 0.1 kilogram. And my third absolute error would be delta x3 equals to measured value, that is 20 kilogram, minus true value, that is again 20 kilogram. It would be equals to 0. So now taking the average of the magnitudes, when I say average of the magnitudes, I simply take their absolute values, ignoring their sign. Okay, you can see here you get the magnitude by putting a mod each time. Okay, so the mean absolute error delta x would be equals to, in this case, my first absolute error, magnitude of my first absolute error, which is 0.1 kilogram, plus magnitude of my second absolute error, that is again 0.1 kilogram. Remember, I am talking about magnitude, I am ignoring the sign. Okay, plus magnitude of my third absolute error, that is 0 upon number of times the measurement is carried out, that is 3. That would get us 0.2 upon 3, that is 0.066. Rounding it off up to one decimal place, I will get a value of 0.1 kilogram as my mean absolute error. Okay, don't worry, we will solve numericals also later. Let's talk about relative error, which is also known as fractional error. The formula is delta x upon x, that is mean absolute error. This is mean absolute error upon the true value. True value is the average of all your measured value, and in the numerator it is delta x, which is mean absolute error. Okay, and relative error gives you an idea of the amount of error present in your measurement relative to the true value. If I ask you, while measuring a true value of 500 kilogram, you are getting an error of 0.1 kilogram, let's say. Okay, and while measuring a true value of 50 kilogram, you are getting an error of 0.1 kilogram. Which measurement is better? Obviously this. And this idea is conveyed by the concept of relative error. It gives you an idea of the error in your measurement relative to the true value which you are trying to measure. Okay, percentage error is nothing, just the relative error expressed in percentage. That is, if suppose delta x upon x, that is mean absolute error upon true value, which is relative error, is equals to 0.04. okay, then percentage error would be this multiplied by 100. Okay, delta x upon x, that is 4%. Percentage error is delta x upon x, that is relative error multiplied by 100. Relative error multiplied by 100 is your percentage error. Okay, now we will solve some numerical problems to make our concept crystal clear. Let us solve the first numerical problem. The reflective index of water is found to have the values this, and this. We are asked to calculate the mean value, the absolute error, the relative error, and the percentage error. So let's solve the problem. Let me divide the screen into two parts. Okay, now the mean value of our measurements would be equals to the sum of all the values. That means 1.29 plus 1.33 plus 1.34 plus 1.35 plus 1.32 plus 1.36 plus 1.30 plus 1.33, right, upon the number of measurement taken, that is 8. That would give us a value that is something, after adding we will get 10.62 upon 8, that would be equals to 1.3275. Rounding it to 3 significant figures, we will get 1.33. Remember, while doing all these calculations, we are following the rules of significant figure for multiplication and addition. Okay, so if you do not know about it, you can watch my previous videos. So this is our first answer. The mean value x is equals to what? 1.33. Now let's come to the second part. This time we are asked to find the absolute error. So let's say the first absolute error is first measured value minus true value. We will treat this, the mean value is same as true value, so this is our true value 1.33. First measured value minus first let me erase. Now first absolute error is first measured value, that is 1.29 minus true value. Second measured value is 1.33, that is the second measured value. This is our second measured value, okay, minus true value, which is again 1.33. Third absolute error is the third measured value 1.34 minus the true value. Fourth absolute error is the fourth measured value 1.35 minus the true value. Fifth absolute error is 1.32 minus 1.33. Sixth absolute error is 1.36 minus 1.33. okay. Seventh absolute error is 1.30 minus 1.33. It might seem boring to you, but remember, you have to do the practice. Only then you will be able to solve the problem in your exams. Third, this is delta x7, okay. Eighth absolute error is delta x8, that is 1.33 minus 1.33, because measured value is 1.33 as well, okay. So the first time we will get a value that is minus 0.04. The second time we will get a value that is 0.00. The third time we will get a value that is 0.01. The fifth time we will get a value that is 0.02. Then we will get a value that is minus 0.01. Then we will get a value that is 0.03. okay. Then we will get a value that is minus 0.03. Then we will get a value that is 0.00. okay. So these are our 8 absolute errors, okay. First absolute error minus 0.04, second absolute error that 0.00, third absolute error 0.01, fourth absolute error, fifth absolute error, sixth, seventh and eighth. Clear? Remember, our mean value is 1.33 because I am going to erase this part to solve the remaining part of this problem. Okay. Now we are asked to find the mean absolute error, mean value, absolute error, the relative error. Okay, we are asked to find the relative error and percentage error. They have not asked to find the mean absolute error. It's okay. To find the relative error and a percentage error, we have to find the mean absolute error as well. So a mean absolute error, let's say it is delta x. It would be equals to sum of all the absolute errors by taking their mods. That means sum of the now to find the relative error and percentage error, we will find first. Now to find the relative error and percentage error, we have to find the mean absolute error first, okay. So let's say mean absolute error is delta x, then delta x is what? Average of the magnitude of all absolute errors is known as mean absolute error. So mean absolute error is mod delta x1. When we put mod, it means we are ignoring the negative sign, okay. That is mod of minus 2 is 2 and mod of 2 is 2 as well, okay. So delta x1 plus mod of delta x2 plus mod of delta x3 plus mod of delta x4, so on plus mod of delta x8, okay, upon 8. This would give us mod of delta x1, that means mod of minus 0.04, that is 0.04, plus mod of delta x2, that is 0.00, plus mod of delta x3, that is 0.01, plus mod of delta x4, that is 0.02, plus mod of delta x5, that is again 0.01, plus mod of delta x6, that is 0.03, plus mod of delta x7, that is 0.03 again, plus mod of delta x8, that is 0.00 divided by 8. Okay, this would give us a value that is 0.14 divided by 8, and that would be equivalent to, after rounding off, we will get a value that is 0.02. Okay, remember we are doing rounding off only to conform with the rules of significant figures. Okay, so this is our mean absolute error, that is 0.02. remember it, I will note it down. Now I am going to erase. So the mean absolute error came out as 0.02. Now the relative error is what? Relative error is equals to mean absolute error upon true value. The mean absolute error is 0.02 upon true value. True value was 1.33. Okay, so if we do the calculation, we will get 0.015. Okay, so this is the relative error in our measurement. Now the percentage error is nothing but relative error into 100. Okay, so 0.015 into 100 would give us 1.5%. This is the percentage error in our measurement. Now let's solve this problem. T1 is 2.63 second, T2 is 2.56 second, T3 is 2.42 second, T4 is 2.71 second, and T5 is 2.80 seconds. So what would be the, let's answer the first question, that is the mean value of the period of oscillation. Let's say the mean value of the period of oscillation is Tm, then Tm would be equals to T1 plus T2 plus T3 plus T4 plus T5 upon 5. That would be 2.63 plus 2.56 plus 2.42 plus 2.71 plus 2.80 upon 5. Now this would give us a value that is 2.624 second. We have to do rounding off up to two decimal places. That would give us 2.62 seconds. Sorry, that would give us 2.62 second. This would be our mean value. Why we are doing rounding off up to 2 decimal places? Because the number of significant figure in all these numbers is, the least number of significant figure in this calculation is 3. So we have to express our answer in three significant figures only. Okay, let's see the second problem. Find the absolute error in each measurement. Let's say the absolute error in first measurement is delta T1, then that would be equals to measured value minus what? Measured value minus true value, or the mean value. The true value is nothing but the mean value. Remember, we mean value, true value, actual value all are same. So measured value minus true value. Measured value for the first measurement T1, we have the measured value as 2.63 second minus true value. True value is nothing but the average value of all the measurements, that is 2.62 seconds. 2.62 seconds, it would give us 0.01 seconds. Okay, now delta T2 would be equals to measured value minus true value. Measured value is 2.56 second. 2.56 second minus true value, that is 2.62 second. It would give us 0.06 second in minus 0.06 second. Okay, third is delta T3, that is the third absolute error. The third absolute error will be again measured value minus true value. The third time we got a measured value as 3.2, and the third time we got a measured value as 2.42 second. So it would be 2.42 minus 2.62, which would give us minus 0.20 second. Okay, now the fourth absolute error would be what? Fourth measured value, that is 2.71 second. 2.71 second minus 2.62 second, and it would give us 0.09 second. Okay, the fifth measured value would be The fifth measured value, the fifth absolute error would be, delta t5, that is 2.80 minus mean value is 2.62. It would give us 0.18 second. Okay, so these are our 5 absolute errors: the first absolute error, the second absolute error, the third absolute error, the fourth absolute error, and the fifth absolute error. So to find the absolute error, what we do? We simply subtract the true value from the measured value. Measured value minus true value is absolute error. Measured value minus true value is absolute error. You can clearly see here that absolute error can be positive as well as negative. Here the absolute error is positive, here it is negative, here again negative, then positive, and then again positive. Okay, now the third question is the mean absolute error. Find the mean absolute error. Mean absolute error is nothing but the average of all the absolute error. Remember, while taking the average of all the absolute error, only take their magnitudes and ignore their sign. Okay, so let's say the mean absolute error is delta Tm. Let's say that the mean absolute error, we are solving the third problem. Okay, let's say the mean absolute error is delta Tm, then it would be equals to the average of the magnitude of all absolute error. The first absolute error is, the magnitude of the first absolute error is 0.01 second, plus the magnitude of the second absolute error is 0.06 second, because we will ignore the sign. The magnitude of the third absolute error is 0.20. Remember, while taking the magnitude, we simply ignore the sign. Magnitude means that we are ignoring the sign. Okay, the magnitude of the fourth absolute error is 0.09, and the magnitude of the fifth absolute error is 0.18. Okay, dividing it by 5, we will get the average of all the magnitudes of our absolute errors, which would give us the mean absolute error. And solving it, we will simply get 0.54 upon 5, that is 0.108 second. Now rounding off again up to 2 decimal places, we will get the value as 0.11 second. So what do we know now? We know that the mean value or actual value of the time period of oscillation of the simple pendulum is 2.62 seconds. Okay, the mean absolute error in our measurement is 0.11 second. So can you tell me what would be the relative error or fractional error? Relative or fractional error. The formula is mean absolute error upon mean value or the actual value, that is 0.11 second upon 2.62. Solving it, we will get approximately 0.0419 second. Okay, now this would be equivalent to 0.04. okay, rounding it to 2 decimal place, we will get 0.04 seconds. Now can you tell me what would be the percentage error? Percentage error in our calculation would be relative error multiplied by 100, that would give us 0.04 multiplied by 100, that is 4%. Clear? A simple pendulum is simply a bob attached at the end of a massless string. So let's OA is a massless string and a bob is attached at one of its end. It follows a to and fro path like this. Okay, the time taken by this bob to complete one oscillation is known as time period of oscillation of this pendulum. For small amplitude, we have this formula: time period of oscillation is 2 pi root under L upon G. Okay, where L is the length of the string, this is the length of the string, and G is the acceleration due to gravity. Okay, so if let's say we start counting the motion from this end, okay, when the bob was at one of its extreme, okay, then the time taken by this bob to go to the other end and then come back to the same point is known as the time period of oscillation of this simple pendulum. Clear? Of course, we will talk about simple pendulums in detail in your subsequent chapters. Don't worry about that. If you like this video, please share and subscribe. Don't forget to watch the second part of this video where we will talk about combination of errors. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.